I'm not going to start with any easy questions.
What would you do if you couldn't fail?
I was vulnerable in the sense of I was just who I was.
The cold exposure conditions the inside of our body to literally adapt.
Whatever happens in the gut happens in the brain, and whatever happens in the brain happens in the gut.
Finding the grace and the humor.
Anti-aging is associated with at least an hour of deep sleep nightly.
Absolutely had mentors, absolutely 100% had coaches.
90+% of the decisions that we make today actually stem from fear.
Allow ourselves to have imperfection.
Nothing starts without a plan, nothing ever goes to plan.
Chaga is actually the most antioxidant rich food on the planet.
If we can bring a practice into our lives that helps us be more vulnerable. I'm so thrilled that this content is getting out there, that you guys are promoting bold and vulnerable message and aspirations for people, because I hope that we can all really live that every day.
Hey, this is Jessica.
And Svetlana, and you're listening to the Bold and Vulnerable podcast,
where we aim to inspire others to live authentically through sharing the bold and vulnerable stories of peak performers across a variety of industries. Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by Sauna Space. I am a huge fan and user of their products and have my own photon light that has helped me heal over the past 6 months. Sauna is something that has gone back generations and is the ultimate rejuvenation for your entire body. I use my photon light for detoxification at the cellular level, but also for aiding with my sleep cycle and my parasympathetic relaxation. I use my photon light in so many ways while I'm meditating, if I need to recover from stress or anxiety, to counterbalance all the work I do in front of my computer all day with the blue light stress on my eyes and body, and for clearing up my skin. What I love about the Sauna Space products is that they are portable. You can connect them to any outlet in your house. And so you might be thinking, I can't have a sauna because I'm in a small apartment in New York City, or I just don't have the space. And with Sauna Space, they've really found the best solution, and there's no special wiring or electrical work needed. My photon light is light and portable, and I love having that flexibility with my space. Our planet has over 100,000 chemicals and probably more that we don't even know about, and it's not enough just to cleanse once in a while. Sauna Space can provide your daily detox, and there are hundreds of studies that now show that sauna therapy is one of the most effective ways to detoxify yourself from the modern living we're accustomed to. Our sun has always been a great source of healing for us. With COVID and really wanting to boost our immune systems, I'm sure some of you have heard about vitamin D and how that can really benefit your overall immune and health. Sauna Space is an accelerated healing, and that incandescent red infrared light is the same type of light used in the Sauna Space lamps, and it most closely mimics the sun and what makes it so healing for our bodies. I have a home in New England, and it gets cold and overcast in the winter, and you can feel that temperature dip coming, which for some people can cause seasonal depression. The Sauna Space lamps can help aid with these depressive states when mimicking the sun and its benefits. In addition to the chemical pollution and toxic heavy metals, we are now being bombarded with a newer toxic element, which is called EMF radiation from our cell phones, towers, Wi-Fi, smart meters, and it's clear that we need an extra layer of protection. Sauna Space is really offering this amazing EMF-free sauna experience and has pioneered this model. Red light therapy is something that I not only have added to my daily ritual, but I highly recommend this for anyone who wants to boost their immune system, is feeling depressed, has low sleep quality or challenges falling asleep, has any skin issues, or any type of anxiety or stress. You can transform your mind-body connection and recharge so you can be at your best when you step into the craziness of each and every day. We cannot recommend Sauna Space enough. And of course, if you're interested, always check with your physician to make sure this is right for you. Head over to Sauna Space and use our discount code BOLD5, BOLD5, all caps. Arun Thompson is a coach and facilitator whose mission is to give people the self-understanding they should have gotten in school. He first gained expertise in personal development and transformative coaching working at Rosemary Dream, a personal development retreat center in Brazil, for nearly 3 years. Now he designs and facilitates programs and workshops with profoundly insightful and enjoyable experiences that create a lasting and empowering effect on the people who participate. As well as the workshops and experiences, he is also providing coaching and mentoring for those people on a personal journey of self-discovery, wanting to learn and understand overcoming fears, worries, and past pain in order to live fully, excitedly, and wholesomely. Without further ado, here is our interview with Arun.
Oh my gosh. Well, I love that you're here with us. I know it's been a long time coming. We've been talking so much back and forth, and
Yes.
you got connected to us through one of our previous guests, Bishop, who is a mutual contact and just such a lovely person and a light in this world. And we're so glad to have you on the show. I'm just so, I've been watching your journey, and I'm so just delighted to have you. You are a bright light, and I want to kind of take it back before we get into the nitty-gritty of what you've been working on and what your present moment and calling is all about. I want to take it back to not baby Arun, but maybe when your childhood and how you were brought up and where you grew up, and bring us to the point in your life where you decided to make a change, whether that was something you went through, some adversity that you went through, or how you decided, hey, I'm gonna move to Brazil, or whatever that catalyst was. It doesn't have to be that, because I don't know all the ins and outs of that journey. So I kind of want to hear a little bit more about your path and where you all got started.
Yeah, so for me, I've been super privileged in my life, and so I've been super lucky to have the kind of platform I did, with my parents really encouraging me to follow my heart and really do what it is that brings life to me, right? And I think that's a really nice way of understanding life, is what makes me feel most alive. And so when I was younger in college, it's kind of a sticky situation, right? Like, I think everyone goes through it, with you're forced at such a young age to decide what you want to do, right? Like, as if you're supposed to know at 18 years old, who you are and what it is you're going to do for the rest of your life. So I remember just thinking, okay, well, in the UK, college is called high school. And so, yeah, I was there and I was thinking, okay, well, what do I do for education? What do I do at university? If that's what I want to do. Didn't think I was going to get it in at all. But I decided, okay, psychology, that's my only passion that I want to really follow and go into. And so I just kind of, okay, I'll do that and see what happens. And then went to university and studied psychology. And it was a really good time and lovely for 3 years, enjoying company with people of your age and having fun and getting to know yourself. And then I thought, okay, well, what do I want to do with this? And really just, again, followed the passion of wanting to understand why people do the things they do and help people live a better quality of life. And specifically at that moment in time was about work. We come back from work and pretty much everybody's saying oh, it's a bit of a rubbish day. Oh, my manager's a bit of a so-and-so. And it just seems like the place that's draining us most. We spend 70% of our waking lives there. So for me, it didn't make sense. We're doing everything outside of work that we could to change our lives, to make ourselves happy, go on holidays, retreats, and all that good stuff, and not looking at actually the thing that we could impact the most. And so I ended up doing then a master's in occupational psychology. And then I got into a job from that, writing tests for big organizations who were doing en masse recruitment, big scale recruitment stuff. And I was stuck behind a laptop. And I thought it was the greatest thing ever, because I was in this new startup and it's going well. And, there's bean bags on the floor and they pay for your lunch. And it's every graduate's dream role to be in. And one day, you've been seeing, oh, it's great, this is so cool, we're playing ping pong at lunch, great. And you think that's it, you think you've made it, you think you've done it. And one day they pulled me aside and they said, Aaron, you've got to have a conversation with you. And I could sense, something was up. And they said, look, we're going to have to let you go. And I was oh, what's going on, and your world falls apart. And you think, oh no, this was supposed to be it. This is supposed to be my path and where I'm going. And they said, you're excited about everything accept your work. And I was just like hit with a real slap in the face, but it was true, right? Like, you know, I'm a people person, is obvious, and yet there I was creating tests, and I hated it. And so it kind of left that like big vacuum when, you know, you lose a job and then you're like, well, now what do I do? And so that was a really big moment of like, okay, well, like I'm not doing this thing that I thought I was going to be doing. I'm not following this path. Unfortunately, at that time, I had a few friends who were also kind of in this transition mode. And so we decided, right, like, while we're young, while we don't have these responsibilities, let's go traveling, right? And so I think it's an amazing way to really like find yourself and to spend your time. And so we decided, okay, we're going to go to Latin America and we're going to travel around. And that's where kind of the journey begun, where I fell into a place in South Brazil, a place called Rosemary Dream, which was like a retreat center where people and backpackers could come and we could explore how to live an optimal way of life and how to really live well. And so did 6 weeks volunteering there, and absolutely fell in love with the place, the idea, the people, and just like the fun there. Finished my travels and then decided, right, like I'm coming back to this place and I'm going to make a big thing of it. I decided just to like totally sack off the typical idea of, you know, what it is to leave university and then, you know, get on the career ladder and like, you know, do it like that way where you build up and you become a manager and then and you get the money and then you get the house and then you get the partner and then you get the family. Not knocking it at all, but just thought, right, like I've got to follow this. And luckily, like I said, I had the backing and decided to go 5 fingers in. So then did 3 years there. And only just recently come back on the back of that from COVID to be with my family and to be here and maybe see what England has to offer. So that's the kind of long, short of it, bits and bobs in there, but I'll keep it to that.
Where in England are you?
So in the south of England, in a lovely seaside town called Lancing, so near Brighton.
Amazing. So I want to, and I know Svetlana, I can see your mind turning and smiling through the computer. I want to dissect a little bit more of your discovery of self and whether that was at Rosemary Dream or not, because it looks like you had this psychology degree, but then you did get a job and you were feeling maybe like that was your thing, but then got hit with that reality, which is the truth of you are excited about so many things, and those passions, I mean, what a blessing that they gave to you by letting you go, right? Yeah. What a blessing. But let's talk about this deeper adversity that you faced and maybe some tough lessons that you learned at Rosemary. I know when we were talking to Bishop, who's a mutual contact, we went into her journey and her experiences with ayahuasca. I don't know if that did anything for you or if you had similar experiences. I want to get into this deepness of it. Is there any adversity that you faced while you were there when you were looking at a deeper dive into self?
Yeah, I mean, like tons. And what was cool about it and what I think I was really blessed with is the fact that Rosemary Dream was a place for that, was a place to almost find adversity and find those things inside of me that were limiting me, that were like holding me down, was feeling heavy. And so, for example, like we would host some workshops called Breaking Barriers where you'd come into like a ceremonial space. It would be in the evening and it would be very moody, and we'd sit around in silence. And essentially the idea is that we would go around one by one and we would be invited to do something that would embarrass us like, as much as we can. So imagine, you know, it's the most like crippling feeling ever to be embarrassed in front of a group of people. And so everybody stayed in silence. Nobody's allowed to laugh. You get up and you do it. And this was like an amazing opportunity to really test myself in that environment. And I think one of the things that was really like really sticky for me at that time was, you know, it's about being yourself and about expressing your truth and expressing like what is true for you. And I was someone who really loved to present like an image that like I'm all sorted and that I'm like packaged up nicely and that, everything's sweet and that there's nothing kind of in the closets. And I remember getting to that environment and just thinking to myself, okay, what is it that I'm going to do tonight? And I was thinking through the options, and then like one thing like just came straight into my head, really like obviously and clearly. And I just thought, okay, like I don't want to tell anybody this. And it was just like my heart was pounding, but I knew it was the thing that I had to share. And at that time, it was about really getting to grips with some of the things that I've done that I wasn't that proud of. And in that moment, I'll share with you guys now. I can feel my heart racing, but I really love to share this because it was when I was younger, and me and my sister were just having a bath together, as you do as kids. And it's hilarious to me now, but we said, okay, let's try kissing, and like whatever that is, and we'll kiss with tongues. And so me and my sister in the bath as kids, and we're there, and we try to kiss tongues, and for me it feels horrible. I'm like, oh, what's going on there? I don't like that. And as kids, you just explore and you're just trying things out, right? And so obviously to most people, that's just like a totally normal thing to do as kids, and you kind of like you explore and you see other people do it, so you try and do it. But for so long, that stayed with me as something that was shameful, something that was this like, why did that happen? And is that normal? And like, I freaked myself out about it big time. And I think we do this with so many different things, so many things that we've done in our life. And it may be even just thoughts that freak us out, that why do we have those? And then after that, it was a real big liberator, because then I was having conversations with people about similar experiences. Okay, I spoke to one of my friends and said, yeah, me and my brother, we used to pretend to have sex, and I just thought it was like the weirdest thing, and like I just was so ashamed of it, and I didn't know that I could tell anyone or anyone else had an experience like this. And that's one example of kids become sensual, and certain feelings, certain things feel nice to them, and the people that are closest to us are our siblings, our family. And now we get freaked out about it. Mum comes in and sees what's going on, doesn't really know what to do and how to react, and so she blows up and says, that's disgusting, that's dirty, and don't do that, how to do that. And then boom, in that moment, it's created a trauma. You've created an association with your sexuality, and you live your life thinking that actually you're a bad person for it. And so for me, that was one of those moments where actually like it created a domino effect, where I could then start to really be myself, really start to share those things that once I was really ashamed of and troubled me. And I really found myself stepping into more of my own power, more of my ability to be authentic and be free in just whatever I would like to express who I am.
Well, thank you for sharing. It just brings up this like innate like shame that we sometimes place on ourselves, not only in the words that we speak. And I know, Svetlana, you're huge on words and how we speak to ourselves, and the fact that you carried that for so long, that trauma. I think it's beautiful that you were able to not only release it, but then share it with other people, and have other people then share their traumas with you. Svetlana, I don't know if you have anything to add there. It's so deep, we can unfold the whole conversation around it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just curious. How you felt that like ashamed of it for so long? Was it because someone walked in and like yelled at you guys for it, or was it like, oh, the world says this is like horrible, this is nasty, this is bad, like just how we paint those things? I'm always curious, because like there's so many things myself where I'm just like, oh my god, like I've done where I'm just like, there's so much shame around it, and you tell like a best friend and they're like, what's the big deal? Like it's not, and like I've carried this for so long, and like it's so nice to release it. Like I thought I was a horrible person for this. And like really, you're just like little kid, like 10 years old, you're a kid, or even younger. But what was it for you?
Yeah, it wasn't even in the moment that mum or dad walked in and kind of freaked out, so it was just this like big like, oh, is that normal? Is that weird? Should I be freaked out about that? Like, what does that mean? I think there's just so much stigma around so many things, and two of those things, is sexuality and family. And so those two things combined, with the whole idea of kids and what age is consentful, and how can we have that conversation. I think we just then lock it in a box and we just throw the key away, and we just think, oh, well, I don't want to have that conversation. And the parents, they just don't know how to handle that. And I'm not even sure if I could tell you, the conversation I'd have if I walked in on that, and how to really allow them to be themselves. And so there's no wrong or right in this, but there is a place and there's for it, and there's a time for it, and really create a healthy relationship to.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like it's like it's really just exploration happening, right? And I feel like when we put labels on it, and it starts to create a charge around it, and then you start, like most people start feeling really guilty, ashamed, and then you start to gravitate towards that one thing, like even more, even though it's like you may not even like want to do that certain thing, but you start gravitating towards it because of the charge around it. I have an interesting story, actually. Like I went to Tony Robbins. I went to Tony Robbins' most famous, like his most popular event, Date with Destiny. And we did this exercise, and it was like when we went back in time, like it was like, I don't remember exactly what the exercise was for, but it was our earliest memory where we felt where like that negative, like something stuck, right? Like that emotion. And the memory that popped up for me was crazy. Like this is a image that would pop up throughout my life for a long time, and I never really understood why it would come up to my like conscious mind. Like it was me as a baby. I'm literally probably like one, maybe, no, probably younger, and we're still in Russia, and I'm just laying there, and I guess I was touching myself. I was a baby. I was like touching my like area, and my mom's best friend came in, and I think she started saying something like no, like, and like started laughing because from her perspective, she thought it was cute and funny, probably, right? That like, oh, look what she's doing. And she's like, no, but at that moment, I think it did something where like like as a baby, I was kind of like shocked, and sort of, I started feeling this like sense of like, I guess like shame around being who I am, and I'm pretty sure it carried over for a long time until like, just how am I supposed to express myself? How am I supposed to be myself? Like if I can't even touch myself,
Right.
So
Right. It's the most natural thing. Just feels good, right?
It felt good. I was I mean, I don't remember like exactly, but I remember the memory kept popping up for a reason. And at that event, I realized exactly why. It was because I was so ashamed of, being called out for like doing that as a baby.
Yeah, totally. And then like when you realize something like that, then it opens like a bunch of doors, right? Because you let that go, and then you realize that's connected to, your ability to like dance in the club, or your ability to actually approach somebody or allow somebody to give you pleasurable touch, whatever that is. But then you start to get the ball rolling. I think that's a beautiful thing that you shared.
Yeah.
Speaking of bold and vulnerable, my goodness, we're diving right in, folks. I love that story, Svetlana. Thank you so much for sharing it. And it really goes right along with these lessons that we learn when we're children, and then we take these stories into our present moment with us. And it looks like, from your journey, that you were able to have this environment where you could release some of that heaviness and some of that. I mean, I don't want to keep calling it shame, because it's so much more than that. It's all of these hurts, these healings, these traumas, everything. It's the good, the bad, the indifferent. And you were able to release that heaviness. You stayed there for 2 years in Brazil, is that right?
It's under 3, yeah.
Yeah, under 3. And so what were some of the other big lessons that you took away, in your journey there? And I kind of want to leave it open-ended, because I don't want to lead you in any particular direction.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest ones that actually like was a fairly recent, I think, completion, if you like, was a relationship that I had in Brazil, and yeah, I remember just that there was a lot of conflicts in the relationship, and it was kind of a typical, I guess, what you'd imagine as a Latin relationship, which is like major highs, major lows, and that's kind of that's the stereotypical, and that's one of the ones that I had. And it was beautiful, it was passionate, it was so loving, and then there was times where it was really intense, and I remember just feeling like really I guess like hard done by when my girlfriend at the time would tell me that, like, you know, that there's an issue and you've done something wrong, and I'd feel like, oh, you know, why is she coming and telling me I've done something wrong? And I like, and at the time as well, I was also hosting a retreat, and it was like a month-long retreat, 14 hours a day, and I was coaching, so I was doing like crazy days and working a lot with emotions with people, and all I wanted was somebody to look after me when I got home and just kind of nourish me. And I found myself like, I felt I was being attacked in this moment. So, and there's loads of things going on there, and fairly recently I realized that one, you know, I was totally misreading the situation. I was feeling I'm being attacked in this moment, and this is going on, and this person is, you know, doing something wrong. That's what that ego loves, right? You know, that person's wrong and I am right, and they shouldn't be doing this, and, you know, I should get something else. Really, what I understand now is, you know, it's a tragic cry for help. It's like the best way that we have to really ask for our needs to be met. And I think part of the problem was also the fact that I wasn't able to fully set my boundaries and to say, hey, look, if this relationship is going to occur, amazing, I want that to happen, and I want to be able to meet your needs, but it has to happen within this scope, within this kind of contract that we stay here and now, which is like, you know, if we're going to have this conversation, well, let's have it with empathy. What does empathy mean? Well, it means like, I'll listen to what you have to say, I'll reflect that back, and then you listen to what I have to say, and I'll speak my part too. And so without those boundaries, what was going on is that I was telling myself this story that I had, the good boy complex, if you like, which was like, you know, I literally remember telling myself, Aaron, you're strong enough, you can deal with it, you can do it, stick with it, and be loving, be open. And this idea of loving and being a kind person was essentially me just betraying myself in order to look loving, in order to look kind, in order to be nice. And so what I understand now is actually just is manipulation. It's just me manipulating their opinion of me or my own opinion of myself. And so recently I kind of rediscovered that and understood, wow, I wasn't able to set boundaries. And so I was just like an open gate, and everything would come in. I'd say yes to everything until the point where I exploded. And then it was at that point, which was like the most stressful point in the time in Brazil. And then I just said, like, I don't want this anymore. Like, I want to, leave this relationship. Like, I don't want to be here. And I challenged my own ideas of like, should I be here? I love this person, but also like it's too much. And so then I was always 1 foot out the door. And then that just created more insecurity for her. And I kind of, that was then the pattern that kept on reoccurring until just for me, like it was, probably one of the times where I've most suffered from anxiety or, I guess like I got after that I got burnt out basically after the retreat, and it was a real tough time as well, being so far away from family, and when you feel that a feeling of like being alone even when you're around people, and just like not wanting to then show up, not wanting to go anywhere, do anything, feeling really apathetic. And so that was a big time in Brazil that really taught me a lot, and much like this experience at work where, you get told like, sorry, like we're gonna have to let you go. At the time, it feels like, oh my God, this is the worst thing that could happen to me. And the very same turnaround has happened where I felt like at the time, like, why is this happening? I don't want to be here, I don't want this to happen. And yet now I realize like, oh my God, what an absolute gift that was for my growth and my understanding and my ability now to connect with other people and talk to people on that level of understanding.
That's really beautiful. And I mean, Svetlana and I know, and that growth is uncomfortable and it's necessary, and you have to go through those deepest and darkest parts of your being, and you have to look at yourself with a objective view at times if you're able, and really push through the light and the dark, because there's such a really nice cohesiveness that you can create. And you mentioned intensity, and you mentioned anxiety, and you mentioned some feelings that came up for you. What were some mechanisms that you used or that you've learned to use to manage stress and anxiety? And maybe some of the listeners can get some tips and pointers from you. And I'm certainly going to be taking notes on my end, because it's a journey. It's a journey for all of us, especially during this time. I think it's important. But I'm curious what your go-tos are for creating a harmonious life.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I think it's a really, like you said, it's really important at this time that we can manage that well. And I think what's really useful to understand is that there's different levels and different ways that we can approach this. And so it depends on where you're strong and where you're perhaps you have room for improvement. But a number of things. The first thing that I would question anyone on is, how is your exercise? How is your sleep? How is your nutrition, and how is your rest? So the way I work is I think of 4 different energy bodies, and you can use the acronym PIES. That's PIES, PIES. And the first of our energy bodies is your physical energy body. And if that isn't full, if that isn't charged, you can forget the rest. If you've ever woken up after your 4th day of terrible sleep, you know how impossible it is to enjoy even the best scenario with your friends or with family or whatever it is you're on holiday. And so we need to have a look at, like, how are you doing physically? Are you looking after yourself there? Otherwise, let's just not worry about what the mind says or the emotions that show up, because actually maybe after a really good night's sleep, you're going to wake up and say, actually, that's fine. And you know what, I'm just a little bit grumpy. Just like, you know, if you ever seen a child crying and you say, what's up? And they're just crying because they're tired, and that's it. They're just a bit tired and they need to go to bed. And sometimes we can get emotional like that, or we can get worked up. And actually what we need to have a look at is the foundation of which your energy comes from. So the first one is your physical energy body of the PIES. Then I look at your intellectual energy body, which is like your clarity, your understanding, your mindfulness, your awareness, and it all to do with the mind. And so one of the things that I really like to do is to give people the understanding, self-understanding that they should have got at school. The way in which you understand your problems is the way in which you're going to address them and relate to them. So when we understand our stress as if we understand it from like a child, then we relate to it completely differently. We don't say, oh, you know, why am I stressed? I shouldn't be stressed. And if I can just get rid of this stress, then I'll be absolutely fine. And guess what? You know, like with the shame, like with those negative or difficult thoughts, uncomfortable thoughts or feelings, the more you try to get rid of them, the more invasive they become. If someone says, whoa, like, don't look over there. Oh my God, really don't look over there. The first thing you want to do is look over there. If I tell you, like, not to think of a pink elephant, boom, like your mind's already thought of a pink elephant, like the visual's there. And the more you try not to, the more you try to distract yourself or, you know, like run away from the thing or think positively out of it, the worse it gets, basically. And it can only be a short period of time before that thing comes back if you're distracting yourself, which is why we obviously see substances, alcohol, temporary fixes, workaholics, not fixing that. So the first thing we need to do is have a look at what's going on. If we were to hear that stress from the voice of a child, what would it sound like? And you say, you know what, actually, rather than fighting yourself, you'd realize like that's just a part of you that's a bit worried about the future, a bit worried about what's going on, a bit worried that they're going to be humiliated at work, or, you know, not be seen as the person that they were taught that they had to be in order to be safe and looked after. So then we look at that, we look at your awareness of kind of everything that's going on around it, your relationship to the mind. The crazy thing when we understand the mind, and anyone who's meditated will realize this, but if you stop for like 60 seconds and close your eyes, and then you just try not to think at all, what you'll find is that your mind will continue. You are not your mind. Your mind is that internal narrative will go on and on and on. It's like a parrot on your shoulder. And so whilst you're there trying to stop the mind, you're running after this like parrot that's like squawking away and just doing its thing. And basically we've been taught that we are our mind. It is I who thinks. And actually, when we look at the mind and we look at the experience of what's going on, we could quickly realize like, oh shit, like, that's not actually me. That's my mind having the thoughts, creating the thoughts, and I'm experiencing the thoughts of the mind. And so then in that moment, it creates a space between you and your mind. And in that space where you realize like, okay, there's me, and then there's the mind's chatter, and then there's everything else that's going on, and the sounds, and everything is here and real and present. There's now like a freedom that creates like, well, actually, what if I created a new thought there? What would that new thought look like? What would it sound like? So there's the mind's thoughts, and then there's this other thoughts that I can create consciously. And then we start to relate to the mind differently. We start to see the self-sabotaging behaviors that kind of perhaps causes stress or that kind of mess things up as actually part of us that's looking to protect us from harm. And then we can start to love that part, accept that part, and give it the reassurance that a child would need. And we can start to love ourselves and become whole in that and not then struggle with what's going on. And that's really where a lot of the suffering comes from, is our like internal fight. So that is your second energy body. The third one is your emotional body, which is all about understanding like how you like to bring joy into your life. And so that's through connection. So what's your relationship like with others? Is it deep? Is it fulfilled? Are you able to be vulnerable? Are you able to be bold with them? Are you able to share the things that you're struggling with? It's also your play, really important one that we just kind of sometimes like lose in the kind of franticness and the to-dos and the seriousness of life. How are you playing? What do you like to play with? How do you like to express yourself as well? Are you able to like find those corners and those edges in you and you know, role play and do little things that actually bring out different sides in you? You can find that with different people. And that then brings that joy, that kind of really nice, yummy, like excited energy into your life. And then the final one, the fourth one, is spiritual body, which is about how you're contributing to others. How are you impacting the wellness and the well-being of other people? What's your connection with the broader, the umbrella that sits over life and something higher than yourself and the meaning that you create in life? And then what we can find sometimes, even in that one there, when we look to create meaning in life, when we look to understand that the higher meaning and connect to that spirituality, which may say, actually, you know, this is not something I should be struggling against, but something I should be grateful for because it's a gift to me, which is showing me that there's something in me that I can move, can shift, can change. It's something, it's an invitation for me to let go of, accept something, or become someone. And so then you can really then enjoy, embrace, and flow with life. So that's just kind of like a nice overview, so you can check in and say, okay, you know, I'm stressed out now. How are those energies, bodies going? Highs, and check in with the physical, intellectual, emotional, spiritual. And then you can kind of work out, okay, well, where could I work on? Where is there room for improvement? So those are some of the things. Journaling as well is an amazing way to really tap into that stress and kind of connect with that inner child who's stressed out and then say whatever needs to be said in that moment. It's a really nice go-to. But yeah, in amongst what I said, I think there are little things that perhaps people could pick out. I don't know if you want any more concrete things or exercises or tools, but that's the way I like to do it.
Hey guys, I wanted to interrupt your episode really quick to talk to you about our discount code over at Sauna Space. It's BOLD5, bold 5, all capital letters, and head over to sauna.space to go use your code. I've got my photon light going in this video. Enjoy your photon lights, enjoy your saunas from Sauna Space, and now back to our episode.
I love that. I really, really love that. I feel like it's so holistic. Like it's one of the things that like I preach about is like you come to a coach or a mentor or facilitator with one problem, right? Like you think that this is your problem, but that's not really your problem. Like you're like, I just really need help with, I just can't focus. Like I need to be more disciplined. I need to be this and that. And like, I always ask people the same thing. I'm like, how's your diet? Are you moving? Are you getting vitamin D? Like that's the first thing I go to. I want to know like what's your lifestyle like? Because if you're sitting at home drinking Red Bulls, you're not moving, you don't leave the house, like you eat like complete garbage, that's gonna affect your thoughts, that's gonna affect your mood, like all of it's like maybe all you need to do is just like eliminate all those things and your whole life will change, you know? Before you start talking to me about like focus and like discipline and stuff like that, you know what I mean?
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a huge one. And yeah, I mean, everything you said, I'm like, I'm so on board with all of it. I feel like all of that is just so important. And like journaling, like you brought up journaling, I feel like that's so huge. Like sometimes I haven't done this in a while, I journal, but one of the things that I used to do is like look at a picture of like myself when I was little, and like I would just like cry, you know, because it's like you're being so mean to yourself, and I'm just like, I look at this baby and I'm just like, oh my god, how could I be so mean to you? Like you're so like precious, you know? Like anyways.
Preach. Yeah, it's so true. It's so true.
I agree too. And I know, so one of them, like I said, I've been following your journey. And one of the things that you posted, I think it was a few months ago, was that the end of one problem is the beginning of the next problem. And so where your focus goes, energy flows. Like you were saying earlier, if you are told to think about a pink elephant, you're going to think about it. And so I think we get really in depth into these problems, and sometimes we create the problems ourselves. And I'm curious as to kind of your tactics for getting people out of those types of almost like cyclical type scenarios where one problem's leading to the next problem, leading to the next problem. And kind of, Svetlana, like you said, what's your diet, because that will lead to what your lifestyle looks like, which will lead to your habits, which will lead to this, and maybe some tactics and tricks and hacks that you've worked with people or coached people on to kind of get out of that type of a problem mindset and creating new problems type mindset.
Yeah, so there's like a number of different things there, but the first thing that I think like is so important for like inner work or personal development is like, you know, taking responsibility, right? You know, if somebody's pointing out there's a thing going on, and, you know, like, oh, you know, if only my childhood was different, if only, you know, I had the money, if only I had the time, and that, you know, it's just, dude, you decide. That's the cool thing about life, is that you get to decide all of it, right? But they say, no, I can't, because, you know, if I quit my job, then I don't have enough money. Well, great. So you're deciding to stay in that job. You're deciding to have those problems then, because there's not going to be a point where you arrive, where you say like, wow, here I am with margarita in hand under a palm tree in, you know, Barbados. It doesn't come. And even there, you're going to be like, this is pretty lonely because everybody else is back at the work in the office. And so you're always going to have something that's not right. And that actually is the beauty of life, that it keeps us going, keeps us interesting, keeps things happening, and it keeps us solving things. And that's where actually happiness comes from, is solving people's problems. And it's really about that, like saying, okay, let's be really real here, is that you're making a decision. You've got to take responsibility for that decision. And what is it that you would like to create in your life, and what problems would you like to have? And when you do that, when you decide your problems, something very, very powerful happens, where you actually then start to create life. You start to make it work for you, and you start to really fulfill your role in life and what you can bring to it.
Yeah, I the way that I look at that, and I think we're talking about the exact same thing, but I call it the power of choice. You always have the power to choose, and you can always say, no more of this. This is a boundary, or I'm quitting my job tomorrow. You have the choice. And I don't say that lightly, because I know that some people financially might not always have that definitive choice to, you know, quit tomorrow if they don't have something else lined up. I get that. I understand. We're all humans. We all need to, you know, some people have mortgages, healthcare, children, all these other things that they need to pay for. But I do think that if you start to plan your life and you start to design what you want for your life, and that's where your focus goes, and that's where you can continue to put your energy instead of that problem mindset we were talking about beforehand, then then you can make those things a reality, and you can make the power of choice your own, and you can really run with it. So I envy that. And it's so crazy talking to you. And this happened to us. This happens to us all the time, Svetlana. Is that I looked at the time, and I think that we've only been talking for 10 minutes. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But because it's just, I love getting deep into these conversations, but I also want to give you a chance to say what you've been working on recently. What are your upcoming projects that you've been doing, and how are you helping people? You came back from South America and from your master's degree with all of this knowledge, and I know you're doing a lot of coaching. And as fellow coaches, we totally support that and love sharing this light with the world. But tell us what you're working on as much as you can, unless it's top secret, but we'd love to hear more about what you're doing and how people can come to you.
Yeah, so the strapline, like I said before, is really giving people the self-understanding that they should have gone to school. And so this kind of lack of self-understanding that we're seeing in society at large, there's an effect which is like apathy, like really just feeling bummed out, like hopelessness, like what, like what's going on? And then you just kind of follow the route that you've been given, and you kind of go along life thinking, is this it? Is this really what I want to do? Is this really like what it's going to be turned out to be? And I'm going to do this for the next 50, 60 years. So there's that part, there's like the anxiety, like really just being so heady and having that inner critic all the time, just coming down on you. And also the kind of inner warrior, like the part of you that's just like frantic about things going wrong. So we're seeing that. We're also seeing like a really big disconnect in relationships, getting into conflicts a lot of the time, or just feeling not connected to the people that are around you, feeling lonely, feeling a little bit like, where's my tribe? You see that a lot now. There's that part of things. And then there's just like the feeling of like, what is my direction? Who am I really? And what is my authentic self? And what is it that I want to be doing in this world and showing up? And really being able to feel free in yourself and feel like you have a clarity about who you are, what life is about, so that you can move forward. And so what I really love to do is work with those people who are feeling like, oh, life's a bit sticky at the moment. I feel a bit stuck, not sure. And there's this like, perhaps a large part of it is we're pretending the whole time that we're okay. We're pretending that everything's cool. We're pretending that, everything's sweet, and you see it in social media, but just like behind the mask is actually a part of us that's saying like, this isn't me. And I'm saying no when I mean yes, and I'm saying yes when I mean no, and I'm showing people that I'm intelligent, or that I'm fine, or that I'm enough, and doing the things that I feel like I should be doing, but actually it's bringing me no joy and no fulfillment. So what I am doing right now, one-on-one coaching, and also in a course that's coming out in November, there's a 4-session course called Be the Day, and it's all about getting that foundation of self-understanding, so that the things that are going on for you in your life and the problems that you're having, you kind of have this moment where you're like, oh, like, of course that's happening. Like, of course I'm like in this like sticky mess because of what happened when I was young and what I learned, and then what I'm like, how I'm responding to that now, and kind of getting myself in a bit of a dizzy. And then the answer becomes obvious as to what to do after that, because you really get to know the problem well. And so it's not about like I can imagine that there's like, you're trying to bang a screw into the wall with the wrong end of a hammer. And you're just like, you need to hit it harder and like faster and do all this. But if you don't understand the problem, then that's just going to be so pointless and so destructive, actually. And so if someone comes along and says, you know what, actually it's better to use a nail, and it's also better to use the other end of the hammer, the metal part, and now give it a go. Boom. Wow, how good does that feel? And that's the kind of impact that I want to have for people, which is allowing them to just go, okay, yeah, now life's a little bit easier, and actually I get what's going on here, and I get what's going on for that person in a way that I no longer take things personally. I know what I need to do and where I need to go in my life, because I'm now listening to my intuition and following my heart.
I love that analogy, and I know that my man would appreciate that, because he's a general contractor. So he'd be like, no hammers with the screw, come on. Completely off. So I love that analogy.
Awesome.
I'm curious for my own self, but I know our listeners are probably as well. Svetlana and I keep a long book list, and I'm curious as to either what you've gifted most in terms of books or materials to other people in your life, what you've recommended most, and or what you're reading right now, what you're kind of diving into currently.
Yeah, great question. So I really love a book called Awareness by Anthony DeMello. I've just read it recently and it was honestly mind-blowing. It really was such a beautiful book, full of like hilarious anecdotes and like kind of a slap in the face stories about how we actually don't want happiness, how actually we are so fixated on the conditions for which we try and fulfill happiness that we'd rather have the things that we think are going to bring the happiness rather than the happiness itself. And it's about waking up. It's all about kind of really becoming enlightened, for want of a better word, and really waking up to what is. So that book was really mind-blowing. There's a podcast that I'd really recommend, and that actually like gave me one of my big breakthroughs and had me just like bawling my eyes out while I was cleaning the house. And that was Peter Crone and Aubrey Marcus. And I think it's called like Peter Crone Can Free Your Mind. It's the first one out of the two that really did it for me. And that was really impactful and really unlocked a lot of things for me. And they do focus on what we spoke about tonight, which is kind of that inner child aspect and
I think
understanding what happened so that we can understand what's going on now.
I think I watched that episode on YouTube between him and Aubrey. Aubrey was like in tears, right?
Yeah, how good is it?
So good. I actually reached out to him. We're supposed to get back because we want him on the show. Oh my God, he's fascinating. I would love to pick his brain. He's amazing. Yeah,
for sure. So yeah, that's a big one. There's another one as well, Tim Ferriss and a guy called Jim Deathman, and that's a really brilliant podcast. Again, just all about understanding yourself in a really neat way, and all of the work that he does is super simple, really easy to understand about emotions and why we feel certain things, and also about consciousness as well, and kind of what that is, and demystifying it, which is great.
I love that you're mentioning very specific episodes within people's podcasts, because we've had people come on and say, oh, the Aubrey Marcus podcast. And we've talked about Tim Ferriss so much that we're probably blue in the face. But I love that you're very much cherry picking the things that so deeply resonated with you personally. And I think it just, it gets a little bit deeper. It's not just like, hey, go do this, go read that, go listen to that podcast. It's more on listen to this particular episode of this podcast because this is how it touched my life. So I appreciate that and wanted to honor that. And just honor your vulnerability in general with all of our questions. Another thing we ask all of our guests is about your morning routine. Or your afternoon routine, your nightly routine, whichever one really resonates with you. I'm curious, even if it's nothing, what that might be for you and how long it might take you to put that man bun in.
Yeah, you don't want to sit down, it's going to hit the floor. Rapunzel. So yeah, like I think I'll be really honest. I would love to say like, I do this every day religiously. I'm not one of those people. It would be great to be able to say that, but I kind of flick and change, and it's like seasons, sometimes something that's really like more yin and more still really works for me. Sometimes it's just like I'm in a period of like go-getter mode, and that feels really fun to do. So I'd say right now, like what I'm up to, first thing when I wake up is just brush teeth and wash face, and then stick on a coffee, and then come back or like a tea of some sort. Meditate for half an hour. Sam Harris is incredible and does he's got the Waking Up app, and there's like a 3-month trial, and it's beautiful, really, really good to really experience yourself in a new way and do mindfulness in a new way. So put him on or put on some like Native American music and then meditate. And then if I'm feeling brave enough, I go for a sea swim and I get in there and I jump around in the waves, the tide's high, and have some fun there. And a little workout in the morning as well, get a sweat on. I don't know if you guys have heard of The Class by Taryn Toomey.
I have not.
Heard of it?
Yeah, I've heard of her. My friend,
you're gonna love it.
my
It's
friend
so
takes
good.
her class, and like I've seen some other influencer like Dr. Jess take her. It's like I see the moves. It's like you're doing something with one arm, like lifting your whole body, twisting in this weird way, right? Is that her?
What? Yeah,
I'm like,
I
she's
don't-
doing this. Is that her?
I've never done that one.
No, but like I'm pretty sure I know who you're talking about because I've seen Amanda actually taking her class. I'm pretty sure this is her. Like it looks really crazy. Like you're working muscle groups that I think like you never even knew existed.
So yeah, the way I'd explain it is like it's like aerobics meets HIIT meets yoga meets emotional release, and it is so freaking good. Like every time I'm like, yeah, this is it, and it's a really beautiful way because journaling does one thing which is great, and you can write that down and you can get the thoughts out.
I lied. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I so lied. That was another woman. I know exactly what you're talking about because Tara Toomey, is that what you said?
Tara Toomey, yeah.
She was actually came to the assembly, Jess. I'm pretty sure she did a class at the assembly. I couldn't make it, but I know exactly what you mean because everybody's like always crying after the class. Like they're just like, oh my God, this was like such a crazy relief. I know. I'm sad I missed that class. I think I was like super pregnant at the time. That I was like, yeah, no thanks.
Well, they do a 2 weeks free trial. So if you want to like test it out, like I really recommend it to anyone. Like I said, it's a really nice way of getting out of the head and into the body. And then, if there's something there that you're holding on to, if you're stressed, if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling really sad, like the first time I did it again, just like I needed a good cry, and I just like was able to hold myself. So you're like working really hard, and like really going in there, like what are you thinking now? What are you noticing? And the music's amazing, and then you're like noticing that your mind is actually telling you a whole bunch of stuff about like stop and it's tough and I don't like it. And then like, okay, notice that. And they're like, what's a new thought? What's a new thought? And then you're like, okay, well, like the new thought is like, I'm smashing, I love it, this is great, like I feel awesome. And you're like, okay, let's go. And then you're working hard, and then like they're like, okay, something's there, and then like let it go, like release it, and then they like bring you to stillness. Your heart's racing, and then you just like sit there, and they're like, guiding you through this beautiful, beautiful experience. And then they get you going again, and you do some stretching and savasana, and just like it is so pure. It's really, really awesome. So anyone who's like wanting an alternative way or a way of just like emotionally releasing and getting a sweat on, wow, do that for sure.
It seems like it's very heart opening. So I'm very excited to look it up. And
I'm looking forward to hearing your experience of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Can't wait to experience it. And where can people find you? Where are you most active? I follow you on Instagram. That's where I see you most active, but that might not be the place. So where can people find you? Do you have a website? Where can we direct people who want to know more about you and look you up and be able to follow your journey?
Yeah, so the best place is definitely Instagram. It's Arun J. Thompson. And that's where you can find a bunch of like cool content and videos. And I like to just like try and give you as much as I can in terms of tools and understanding there. So it's definitely like a good place to go. And you can check out the website as well, which is perhaps more detailed about kind of some of the work and the background of stuff. And that's just arunthompson.com. And hit me up as well. I love being contacted and like, I don't mind having a half an hour conversation with anyone about what's going on and perhaps try and make a shift there in that moment. And if it feels like there's resonance and like, actually you want to explore more, then let's do it. Otherwise, like, sweet, go ahead and do your thing.
I love that. And can you spell that, your handle for us? Because I know we were talking earlier about your name. So I want to make sure everyone can find the right spot if you're just listening to this in your car, and you can find Arun or Arun or Arun or Arun. Like what can you spell that for everyone?
Yeah, so it's ARUN, so like a run, like going for a jog. It's a run. Yeah, ARUN, and then J Thompson, THOMPSON.
Love that. I know we weren't recording earlier, but I love the story about how you're named after a family member. So I kind of wanted you to go into that now that we're talking about your name and where everyone can find you, and just honor that real quick. Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, it's early. So off the back of kind of Svetlana asking, like, how do you say your name? You know, like it looks like Arun, but like, is it Aaron? And then basically my parents gave me the name of my uncle's brother, who unfortunately passed away due to cancer. But my parents had a really close relationship with him, and was very fond of him, and decided to honor him in his life and name me Arun. And so the funny story is that, you know, when people ask me, like, how do you pronounce your name? I say, well, look, it's Aaron. That's what my parents would call me. But actually, the guy I'm named after is Arun. And that's the Indian way of saying it. And actually, it's a really nice thing that everybody in Brazil calls me Arun in order to honor him and his life and the guy that I'm named after. So, yeah, whatever you want to call me, friend, mate, Aaron, Arun, AJ, it's all good. So welcome.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your light with us, sharing your journey with us, and diving a little bit deeper into some of the adversities and childhood trauma and things that work for you to manage anxiety and everything that you're working on with your programs. And I know that there's people that are listening that are going to find you and reach out to you. So we appreciate you coming on and just wish you all the best of luck. And we're so happy that you're in our circle now. And
yeah, guys, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure. It's been so nice to hang out with you. Let's do it again.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Thank you for listening to the Bold and Vulnerable podcast. For more information on today's speaker, please visit us at boldandvulnerablepodcast.com.
And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Let's keep spreading the love by being bold and vulnerable. Thank you. We love you.